Hey yo, it's your boy Monster Man Rocco.
It's your boy Swagger Rock.
This is Snack the Ripper.
You have to go to Don't Know.
Master Ace. You are not rocking with the best. Breaking Records Radio.
Breaking Records, man, radio is like the place to be. I don't know, fuck strange music, man.
Yeah, I kind of saw you going in that direction a little bit when you put out Revolutionary. Not necessarily in terms of it being a super personal record, but you were going in the direction of having kind of a well-read record, right? Like it was very politically informed. It felt like you had at least grown from Gray Hair's era, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's all our learning curves and like the things that like are within our environment and what we're subjected to or what we've assimilated to at some points. I don't like to use the word assimilate because that's not my intention, but what
Sure.
becomes part of our environment.
Yeah, 100%. Last time we spoke briefly about DJ Deadeye and kind of noting how he was one of your go-to DJs. This album has a little bit less cuts on it than before, but is DJ Deadeye still the dude on the cuts for this album for the most part?
So I didn't even use cuts on this album.
Okay.
I absolutely use go-to DJ Deadeye. And, obviously Static is as well, but DJ Deadeye is like my go-to, like whenever like, I'm like in need of cuts. That's the person who I usually check for, but there's so many dope DJs out there that like I could tip my hat to and respect. But fam is fam, and our working relationships are well documented. So it's only natural that we keep it in house.
Why no cuts on this record?
It was just there was no feel for it. Like really, like I let the music speak for itself and do what it needed to do. If something called for it, if I was interested in like throwing it on there, I absolutely would have did it. But in creating, the objective was to just like let the music do what it does and not try to purposefully play something because it's hip hop,
Gotcha. One of my favorite cuts off the record here is the Legacy track, Legacy Driven, produced by Evidence. And that song, everything about it in terms of the content, there's been a lot of, this is, I guess, one that would have had to have been written after quarantine, right? Just content-wise, it would only make sense. But there's been a lot of quarantine-esque songs released over the past year, over the last few months anyhow, and there's always a certain level of gimmickiness to it. It feels kind of corny in most circumstances. This didn't feel that way at all. This felt super. This felt like heartfelt, and it felt like there was a deeper meaning behind it than rather just here's my experience in quarantine. It really felt like this is contextualizing quarantine as kind of a way that the world is shifting in general, and then a man's perspective on kind of dealing with that shift in the world, rather than just kind of this little quarantine song. One of my favorite elements of it is the beat, produced by Evidence. It's this like super jazzy, this jazzy, I assume it's sampled, I'm not 100% sure, but this jazzy sample that's put through there, and these horns are really emotionally driven. Can you tell me a little bit about that song and that beat and how you ended up getting Evidence for that?
So the records with Evidence, came towards the tail end of the record. Not because we were building, but there were other records that I just had, focal pointed, and then I had spoke with Evidence and let him know that, I really wanted him to have a major place in the album and in making the body of like what the album was going to sound like.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, Ev's one of my faves, low key, and I don't give him enough recognition a lot of times, and a lot of people in general don't give him enough recognition, especially as a producer. He's phenomenal at what he does, and because he's so great at what he does on the mic, a lot of times that goes overlooked. So at least just from my viewpoint.
Yeah, he's been
Many others
producing
may.
a lot of his solo material as of late as well, right? Like, I think a lot of people associate him with Alchemist, but if you look at his later career, it's a lot of evidence production.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, he's so great at what he does. And I love that Ev likes to take chances like that record. So, you know, the stripped down nature of the legacy driven record, and for a moment also This Village, that's another stripped down record. Not typical of a Reks sound. I did one record on the Greatest Sex called Kites, produced by Alchemist, and it was kind of that vibration with the stripped down, newer sound that's like, you know, infiltrating hip hop. But like the nature of that record and that feel of that saxophone was just so 2020 and what was going on in this environment, and so it just wrote itself through what Evidence brought to the table. I was just so in love with the sound that he provided with that record, and so, you know, the message was basically that I wanted to resonate with the feeling of change in all of our lives. No matter what was going on in the world today, we were all, no matter what, affected by what's going on with coronavirus, whatever your beliefs or disbeliefs are.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, it's a beautiful record. It's my favorite song off the whole album, and I think the whole album is great. I really genuinely don't think you have a weak spot in your catalog. Like, you're one of my favorite MCs, and you've been super consistent over the years. But it's a standout track, even among an otherwise great album.